Okay. Yeah, coming to the next question, I mean the section here will conclude designing and highly available, cost-efficient, fault-tolerant, scalable system. We are completing this section. The next section is AWS IAM, so Identity Access Management, which is the primary service that we were talking about. This is also one of the key things for solution architect associate level examination, and we'll talk about what IAM what are the features and what exactly it does. Okay, so in this in this section we'll learn about the features of IAM and what are the different policies that we can use it here, and what are the different AWS users that we have it, and what are the different groups available in IAM users, in the IAM, and what are the different roles and also the best practices. So we'll talk about one after other in this section to understand what exactly IAM covers, right? Okay, so this is the identity access management that we talked about a couple of times in the earlier slides, which is a core, uh, uh, the initial core component of the services that you can see that, when you're in the cloud, when you have the multiple users, you have to give the role-based authentication, and you can limit that particular services to be available for a specific group of users, and you can manage the policy service like password policy services, and any kind of identity federation information, or secure access which you wanted to give it to the AWS resources, any kind of granular permissions to the users, or particular services, everything you can control it through IAM, which is if you take a typical web service application, you will be giving authentication to very few users, right? Like whoever the registered user uh, is able to register, log into that application. So here again, when you create the root user is responsible for creating IAM users, and so we'll talk about all these things in the next slide, what exactly the shared access and all this stuff. When it comes to the shared access, you'll have the admin user and you'll have the multiple set of users, like in three sections, which we talk about, like one in EC2 and the other one in S3 and the other one is RDS, the storage layer. So the users here, the admin user is responsible to give the EC2 instance access to specific group of users, and there is another set of group users, let's say B, having access only to the S3 storage area, and the third set of users having access only to RDS. So the people who are here having access only to the RDS, they cannot go to the EC2, right? Here, if you see this diagram here, we have given access to the users to RDS as well as S3, but these users cannot go and access EC2. Okay, and these users having access to EC2 as well as S3, but they cannot have access to RDS. One second. Yeah, right. So here again, these set of users here having access only to S3, they do not have access to EC2 or RDS. So which means you can have a different users group, and you can give access to the different services, which is a role-based authentication services that you can say. Those kind of things like shared services. So this service having access to two set of groups. So this is what you will call it as a shared access. Okay. And coming to the granular permission, in this, what you do is a different permission to various users to manage their access to AWS. So if you, let's say if you're a typical development application, right? And you have your development team. And what you do, you don't give every access to the developers because it's a very not safe in the cloud. If you give a complete development access, complete access to the development team, there is a chance that you may lose some data, right? So this is user specific services, you will call it as. You give access to the people, to the development team, read and write access, which is there in your volume. So you go and put this data here, and you have the admin access, which they can manage the data in this volume at the later stage, but you can only read and write access. But admin users will have the complete access if they wanted to, delete some data and all that activities. So you have the separate section of admin group users can do only those permissions. So, but the normal development team can do only read and write access. And when it comes to the instances that you have it, right? So you give instances, few instances access only to the development team, but not in complete informations or the complete instances. So this way you can even protect a couple of instances, not getting deleted from the cloud, uh, either by some wrong operations. So this is one of the thing which development team like the admin team giving the granular level of permissions to the users. So this is one of the example. Okay, coming to the secure access. In this, what we talk about here is, let's say you have EC2 instance and you have IAM, which is Identity Access Management in between, and you'll have access to S3 bucket and database storage. So your scenario is in such a way that your application, which is hosted on your EC2 instance, and from the EC2 instance, you would be requiring access to S3 storage and a database storage, where you wanted to store the data and retrieve the data, whatever like a banking application or supply chain based application that you hosted in your EC2, okay, which is in the cloud computing. So here again, coming to the another scenario, your identity federation. So let's say you have accounts in a different social networking, right? So you'll have Gmail, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, and your Active Directory, which is your corporate Active Directory I'm talking about. So you can have this identity access management, and you can get the temporary access on your AWS resources. So IAM will help you to get all that information and provide temporary access to the services which are there in the Amazon cloud. So in every picture, if you look at the IAM is the responsible to connect to the third-party services and connect to your web services, which is Amazon Web Services. It takes a very key role, and collecting the information and authenticating the users and providing the only secured access to the services which you have in AWS. Okay, and the next thing what we talk about here is identity information. So like information, as I said, we talked about yesterday, like any kind of a file information or the log information, or if you wanted to monitor how the particular service is working, and if you are tracking some users, how the particular user is let's say if you're tracking some user in a specific scenario, like what are the services that particular user is accessing in the AWS cloud. So all that kind of identity information, you would be storing it in your AWS resources. Okay, if you see in this a typical example, there is 3 different accounts, and you have a admin user here, and you have the account B and account C are the IAM users. They are not admin users. So which is admin user is a super user, where a super user can create IAM users. Okay, and when it comes to this particular pool here in the admin user, he'll have access to S3 buckets, logs, and all this stuff. But here the IAM users, they do not have access to the S3 bucket. That you can configure it in such a way that these users do not have any kind of access to the storage layer or the log information. That particular specific files only you have access to the super user or the admin user, you'll call it. They'll have the full control. But being an IAM user, if you wanted to see what is stored in your S3 bucket, right, and also what is that any specific user is doing kind of operations or in the logging mechanism, he'll not be in a position to see it directly, but he'll be able to use using the cloud trail, they can get that information, but only the admin user will have a full control of access, which he can even provide it to any of the IAM user. They cannot even control anything when it comes to the specific full control which is having by the admin user. And this PCI DSS compliance, this is a payment card industry. PCI means a payment card industry and a data security standard compliance. So AWS is, got the compliance for these two, things. Like you can use your payment card industry and data security. So these are, AWS is secured with these two compliances, and we no need to worry about any security or data breach kind of issues. And coming to the multi-factor authentication, I think yesterday we talked about multi-factor authentication when we are talking about the security. So here we have a set of users. If they wanted to log into the AWS, right? In the AWS IAM, they have given some specific set of rules. When they come to the screen, they would be using user ID and the password. I'll show you how it works in the next couple of slides, and also I'll demonstrate how we would be doing it in the AWS site also. So you would have when you register it, like you will be getting user ID and the password, which during the registration time you would be entering those details, and once after that it will ask for your MFA device code, which you would be configuring it in your mobile phone, it's like a OTP. So it's specifically tagged to your AWS account. So you will be seeing that device code and entering that MFA device OTP code. Then only you would be connecting to the AWS. So it's a multi-factor authentication that we are making sure that if somebody knows your credentials, they cannot enter into the cloud. They should even have this MFA device code in order to log into the AWS. There is an option that you can even deactivate MFA device code if you don't want a multi-factor authentication. You can directly go using these two, like credentials, and get into your AWS. So this is user option that he wanted to opt for it, or they can even disable this option. And coming to the password policy, so here, like in general, when we create some accounts in any social networking or somewhere, you'll have the password requirement, right? So these are the minimum requirement which you need to follow, and all that required information has to follow, and create your password while creating the account. IAM policies, description of IAM policies. So we'll talk about what are the different policies that we have it here. So when you talk about IAM policy, every policy will be stored in a JSON file. So I'm not sure whether you have worked in JSON file earlier. It is kind of a file which will be put into the AWS, and it'll have the what kind of a permissions that users would be having it. When you configure it, you have everything coming into these files. You don't need to write anything separately as a coding from the user perspective. Okay, and you can even attach to user. Let's say if I have one policy where the IAM is created with the JSON files. If I wanted to repeat the similar kind of roles which I'm creating for the multiple users or the multiple groups or the roles, I can use the JSON file and just change only the specific users or the group information when you are assigning something to the specific user. So it's easy to do. It's not one by one. We can multiple users, policies, or we can do it at the single shot. As I mentioned, it's a JSON file is a JavaScript object notification file. So whatever we give the policies here to the user will be stored in a JSON format. Probably like we'll be seeing a JSON file, how it looks like in the further slide, to see for one user how the data is stored in the JSON file that will cover. Selected from a predefined AWS list of policies, or you can create your own policy. So there is a possibility that the custom policy creation also can be done. Right? Just not only the creation of the policy that is available, readily available in the and as a template format, you can go ahead and choose or create custom policies. Okay, coming to the next slide here, there are a couple of policies which will be already available in the, when you go to the policy section, which I'll show you when I log into the AWS. So you'll have already policy names available, and these policies are having a specific set of actions, which is predefined. We'll have almost 200 predefined policies available for you to choose. Apart from that, if you want specific policy that you wanted to customize based on the requirement that you are getting it, that you can still go ahead and do creation of the custom policy that we will see once we log into the AWS.